President Trump says Israel and Hamas are, quote, very close to a ceasefire deal. That news coming after his meeting at the White House with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. So could we actually see an agreement potentially coming as close as next week? To retired U.S. Air Force Brigadier General John Teichert. Sir, thank you for joining us here on this Saturday. Greatly appreciate it. Your thoughts on a potential deal? Benjamin Netanyahu was here, the leader of Israel, throughout the week. There were major meetings, but no big announcement made, and now he has arrived back home. Your thoughts?
Molly, I think we were all disappointed that we didn't hear about a deal stemming from Netanyahu's visit. But I do think there's a unique set of conditions that make a deal likely, or at least possible with guarded optimism during the next few weeks. Number one, Hamas is more isolated than they have been in a long time, that their sponsor of terrorism in Iran has been neutered both practically and in credibility, and to be able to finance Hamas. And Israel is on the precipice of being able to seal normalization deals with not just Saudi Arabia, but with Syria, Lebanon, and others as well. And so I think in the next few days, we need a couple of things to happen. We need Qatar to weigh in heavily to convince Hamas it's in their best interest to make a deal. And we need Netanyahu to lock his political coalition in a room and convince them that they really are on the verge of something great for Israel as the only regional superpower. And they need to make a deal to get the hostages back, to end the war, and to emerge with all of the benefits that are on the horizon for Israel.
Is there something now that has changed that makes this deal more likely in the coming weeks?
Molly, I do think that the fact that Israel has taken care largely of the Iran problem, and now that sponsor of Hamas in Iran no longer has credibility or the practical ability to finance like they did, and the fact that Israel feels less threatened overall because of what they did against Iran, makes all of the factors tend towards the idea that Hamas needs to make a deal with Qataris' pressure on the bequest of the United States, and Netanyahu needs to convince his fellow countrymen that a deal is in their best interest as well.
Yeah, and here we are. We're just about 2 months out from the trip that the president took throughout the Middle East, where he was welcomed and very warmly, and that these big economic deals were made, making it appear that the U.S. and much of the Middle East actually does see eye to eye and can trade. Does that have a big influence there in these pockets that are so very challenging and have been for really for generations and longer?
Molly, I think the president's trip, especially to Qatar, is a linchpin to moving forward for Israel in the Middle East. That Qatar plays a bit of Switzerland in the region, that they play both sides a little bit. But I think the goodwill that President Trump was able to gain through Qatar can use Qatar to weigh heavily against Hamas to stop the war and give back the hostages. And I'll tell you, Molly, the thing that really struck me as amazing as an outcome of that trip was the fact that the president of the United States sat down with the new leader of Syria, and now Syria is on the verge of normalizing relations with Israel, that would have been unheard of just a few months ago. And now there's all of this goodwill and pieces are falling into place that it truly is in Israel's best interest to come to the negotiating table and make a deal.
Yeah, some remarkable shifts going on. And while I have you, President Trump says he is, quote, not happy with Russian President Putin. Now he's weighing sanctions against Russia as they have continued to launch really even more aggressive attacks on Ukraine. Do you think we're getting any closer to a ceasefire? The president saying potentially a major announcement coming in the upcoming week.
Molly, clearly Putin has exceeded the patience threshold of the president of the United States. And maybe Putin should talk to the Ayatollah about what happens when you disrespect the president and you negotiate in bad faith. And I think this announcement on Monday, or maybe sooner, could add U.S. weapons to Ukraine. It could enact strict sanctions against Ukraine. And maybe most importantly, there's $300 billion of Russian seized assets. And if we start using that so that Ukraine can fight against Russia using Russian money, then maybe that will raise the pain threshold for Putin and help him to come to the conclusion that it's in his best interest to make a deal.
All right, General John Teichert, thank you very much. Our gratitude to you. We appreciate it.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.